Hello, everyone. This is week 4 video blog. Just want to apologize ahead of time. I have some sniffles in case you hear that in the background. But so for today's discussion, we're supposed to look at an IRB application form and describe the typical process and information needed when you submit the application. And on the application, identify what are 3 most important sections of the IRB. So the one that I'm looking over comes from the University of Texas at Austin. And when you go online to look over their IRB process, it gives you a list of different applications, waiver forms, all of that. And according to the application process, here are some of the requirements when you're submitting one. Of course, the application, the actual review form, proof of human subjects, the consent forms, any type of recruitment materials, flyers, advertisements. They want to take a look at that. The way you're collecting the data, you have to go into detail if it's going to be interview-based, a survey, some type of sheet, and if it's federally funded, a grant is needed. Well, the grant application, you can add that with the IRB submission. So looking over at the application, they have an online and a paper application you can hand in. So first section asks for study information, details of the actual study, the title, who's sponsoring it, if there's any faculty involved, the reason and the purpose behind it, the funding, and the oversight. You have to fill that out. And I think it's interesting how the funding part, it goes into details of the different organizations, like is it from Department of Energy, Food and Drug Administration, Environmental Protection Agency. Like it lists a whole bunch of different agencies. And of course, there's a section where you can enter one that's not already named. The type of procedures, what kind of study you're doing. And it goes into details like, is it a genetic analysis, biospecimen? Is it just an observation? And it's interesting that when you click a certain one, it might have a link to give you more details of what may possibly be more required if you're doing it that way. Of course, it asks for the location. Is it on campus? Is it off campus? What type of subject? What kind of population are you using for your study? Details on the demographics and the participant information. And then there's a whole section about how you're screening and recruiting those subjects. And it goes back into the type of flyers or advertisements you're using to get garner interest. And at the bottom, at the end of the application, goes into lots of detail of informed consents, confidentiality, the typical procedures that you need to get approved or sign off from your potential subjects, and give them the awareness of what they're studying. So they would like a copy of those to make sure that you have that. And the very last section goes into compensation and costs. It's very detailed. It asks what kind of form of compensation: course credit, cash, check, card, gift card, and how much all of this is going to cost. So in doing a study, you definitely need to go into detail about the budget. So I think the top 3 sections that's important in my opinion is the informed consent with the privacy and confidentiality areas, the where you're getting your sponsorship from, like the possible organizations that I was going over. They list a whole bunch of them. And thirdly, the risk and benefits, like what is the point of this study? You know, what type of risks are there? I think it's awesome that they highlight that, because in hindsight, when you're trying to come up with something, a specific study, you should think of all angles, all benefits, all risks behind it, you know, to make sure your potential study and participants are safe. And we know with informed consent how important that is, and confidentiality. Without that, as a participant, I wouldn't feel comfortable knowing that my information may be out there. So I like to know every single part and process of this study. And the budgeting, definitely, you want to know who's sponsoring this study, who is behind it, why. You know, there might be some reasoning behind why this particular organization wants to federally fund a specific study. So I think all of that, to me, are the three most important parts of this application process. And I like how University of Texas really laid it out and is very detailed. You should check it out. All right, thank you. You guys have a great weekend.